since I started working in campaigning on electricity nearly 2 decades ago, have gradually come to realize that innovative electricity holds the key to the long-term future of civilization. Indeed, the key to the future of our planet. If that sounds an extravagant claim, let me try to justify it, at least in outline. You'll find a lot more detail on my website. Governments have been telling us for decades that we have to reduce our use of energy. I am a physicist. I'm also a pedant. And I'm telling you that governments are wrong, wrong, wrong. I know what energy really means, and so do you who work in solar energy. We can use as much energy as we want. That's how the universe works. But we have to reduce our use of fuel. The distinction is not just pedantic, it's crucial. Using fuel is why we worry about what politicians call energy security, but ought to call fuel security. Using fuel is the main reason why we are upsetting the climate. That's why electricity is the key to a sustainable energy future. Electricity will help us to reduce our use of fuel. Fuel is a substance. You have to carry it to where you want to use it, often now over many thousands of kilometers. Electricity is not a substance, it's a process. If you have the right technology, the right infrastructure, you can generate electricity anywhere, in any quantity from minute to vast. And in particular, you can generate it close to where you want to use it in a versatile variety of ways. Human society uses 2 different kinds of electricity. One, we generate using the stored energy in fuel, such as coal, natural gas, or uranium. The other, we generate using technology to convert natural ambient energy into electricity, including hydro, wind, photovoltaic, solar thermal, wave, tidal, and geothermal. This electricity does not use fuel. Most people call it renewable, a term I dislike because it is utterly meaningless. I call this electricity infrastructure electricity. It is created and delivered by the function of physical assets, not by combustion or by any other reaction. Once the assets are in place and functioning, whenever the natural ambient energy is available, the infrastructure converts it into electricity for us to use however we wish. Do you see where this might lead? To me, the corollary is obvious. Using fuel the way we do threatens the security of our energy services and the climate of the only planet we have. Of all the ways we use fuel, generating electricity is the easiest to change. To get better, more reliable, more universally available, and sustainable electricity services, we should be campaigning to move as rapidly as possible away from fuel-based electricity to infrastructure electricity for every feasible application all over the world. While preparing this presentation, I have been mulling over possibilities for such a campaign. We could use a short, catchy slogan suitable for banners, badges, and buttons. Down with fuel. But the campaign itself would have to be much more subtle than that. Coherent, comprehensive, and of course, long-term, and I do mean long. Background material would have to explain how we use and produce electricity now, and how that might change, including technology, finances, institutions, and politics. The campaign would map out a program of feasible stages of change to electricity systems over not just years but decades. The century-old model of remote, large-scale central generating stations and long high-voltage lines should gradually evolve, incorporating much more decentralized, small-scale generation and cogeneration, and indeed trigeneration, close to users. Optimizing local systems with high-performance user technology, and especially buildings, will accelerate progress toward a low-fuel electric future in the UK and around the world. You can find a tentative first draft of such a program in my books, Transforming Electricity and Keeping the Lights On. You'll also find propaganda for keeping the lights on up in the coffee room. But such a campaign needs a lot more work. The campaign would have to consider how to cope with those who now do very well out of traditional electricity, who have a long track record of stubborn and effective opposition to innovation. In particular, it would have to challenge the dominance of those, not just companies, but entire countries, whose economic fortunes now depend on selling fuel. The campaign would have to make the case for the advantages of innovative electricity, and especially infrastructure electricity, to politicians, to business, to finance, to academia, the media, and the general public. It would have to argue, for instance, that traditional economics and accounting procedures misrepresent the values and benefits of infrastructure electricity, which are based on long-term investment rather than short-term commodity transactions. It would have to unpick the convoluted finances of fuels with all the multifarious government support mechanisms and regulatory assumptions that distort what purport to be free markets and make fuel-based electricity look cheaper than infrastructure electricity. Over time, if we begin to get this right, as electricity systems move out of the 19th into the 21st century, we'll find that electricity provides a steadily increasing proportion of the energy services that society desires, and that most of this electricity is infrastructure electricity. At this point, however, I'm sure David Hall would gently and firmly intervene. That's all very well, he would point out, but humans have used fuel ever since we learned to control fire. No matter how versatile, reliable, and clean we make electricity, we are not going to stop using fuel. For some applications and some services, fuel will always be the right choice. To David and to his friends and colleagues, I would respond by saying, exactly. When we learned to control fire, the fuel we used was biomass. In the sustainable energy future, for the energy services best provided by fuel, we shall use, with scrupulous care, the once and future fuel we now call biomass. For me, over 4 decades, energy campaigning has come to this. I now seem to be campaigning to change the way the world works. I won't be around to see whether this campaign succeeds, but I'm convinced that we can win it. Let's go for it. Down with fuel!